going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the Winter 23 Admitted Student Information Session. So glad that all of you could join us tonight. My name is Beth Feldkamp. I use she, her, and her pronouns. I am the online MSW program student service officer. So I'll be getting to know you guys a little bit more throughout the next coming months, but I'm excited to have you here. Tonight, the recording, this evening session will be recorded, so it will be available after this session, and we will send out the slides. So we know there will be a lot of information given tonight. No worry, we will send this out for you. So we also want you to know that you are welcome to ask questions in the chat throughout the presentation, but we will have time at the end to also address any questions that you may have. But throughout the presentation, we'll be trying to answer them. So feel free to go ahead and chat a question that you may have. And I just want to go over tonight's agenda. We are so excited to have all of these wonderful people here so that you get to see them now. You will get to know them a lot more throughout your time in our program. And the first person that we're going to have talk is, as Derek mentioned, the famous Barb Hiltz. She is our clinical associate professor and online program director. And then we're going to have Antoine Featherstone talk about registration and program information. And then we're going to have Aaron Gibson talk about the field placement information. Cerise Carrington talk about financial aid and tuition information. And then at the end, I'll provide some more resources and give time for Q&A. So Barb, welcome.
Hi, I get to be here just to say welcome. Welcome to our MSW program. I am so excited that you are joining us. So my name is Barb Hiltz. I use she, her pronouns. You can feel free to call me Barb. I'm going to be with you all during your orientation weekend, so we'll get to know each other well. I just want to say a couple of things. The first is that you are our 6th cohort entering our relatively new online master's program. So I think that's the perfect time to come because we're through the wrinkles and the lumps and the bumps that we had really early on. So you got the benefit of us working through some of those things with cohorts before you, but yet we're still small enough that we can be kind of nimble and get to know you, and you can really get to know the other people in your online program. So I think it's a really neat time to be a part of this. You are joining a really terrific group of humans in our online program. I've had a chance to meet most of them because I teach your orientation class, your 590 class. They're really spectacular. Lots of folks are coming in with a lot of work experience that they're drawing on. And so what I think is fun about that is you get to sit in a virtual classroom and learn not just from your professors, but from all of the other colleagues that you have there with you. I think you're really going to enjoy that. It's a really dynamite group of folks. So again, welcome. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a little bit over the next 7 semesters that we'll be together. Antoine, I think I'm turning over to you.
Yes. All right. Well, hello again to everyone. I know it's been a little while. I think we all, a good number of us got together back in November when we had the registration session for preparing to register for winter 2023. Again, Antoine Featherstone, I use he, him, his pronouns. I am your online MSW program manager, and I will be your primary source for contact with respect to any program-related issues that you have. So feel free to always reach out to me as needed if you have questions. If we need to work on your course plan, anything that you might anticipate, I'm here to help you through that process. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about just some general program information for you all. As Barb mentioned, you are our 6th cohort, so we are excited to have you. And for me, this is the 2nd cohort that I'm seeing come in, but have been able to see more of a broader view of how the program works. So I hope to, provide support and the best advice possible to make sure that you have a smooth transition through the program. As of right now, we have a part-time online only option. We'll launch the full-time version of the program in fall 23. But for you all coming in, most of your semesters will look like 6 or 7 credits. Students can take a max of 8 credits. But what I will tell you and encourage you from many of the students I've received feedback from is that 6 and even 7 credits can be a lot when you are working full-time, you're managing life and other obligations. So keep that in mind. But the total credits for the program is 45 credits, and you will complete the program over a total of 7 semesters. We also have different ways of entering into the program. Many of you I know are coming in by way of the master track. And I want to add that if you anticipate that you're not likely to complete all of your requirements beforehand, please make sure that you reach out to the Office of Student Services. I know Beth has been a great resource for many of you, and I believe some of you may have already been in contact with Monica Sampson as well regarding your progress. So keep that in mind. Just make sure that you keep those lines of communication open if you are anticipating that you won't be ready to start in time for the winter 23 semester. Many of our students, well, it's not many, but we do have some students who come in with a Bachelor of Social Work. The general difference there is that these students typically will not have, will need to take our foundational field course. They typically will just advance straight into advanced field education after they've completed the necessary course requirements in terms of navigating through the program as a whole. And then we also have partnerships with the University of Michigan Ann Arbor for students in the sociology major program here, and a partnership with the University of Michigan Dearborn with the Health and Human Services program as well. We get a lot of questions about this, but as of right now, we offer one pathway, and that is the interpersonal practice and integrated health, mental health, and substance abuse. So that is the pathway that you all will complete in the program. While that is your pathway, please know that you will be able to have access to many different courses and electives to supplement and really just complement the overall structure of your learning plan, especially if there's just general interest in other areas within social work that will help you be a beneficial and successful social worker in your career. Next slide, please, Beth. And so I want to talk a little bit about just the class registration overview. I'm going to drop in the chat. This was our registration session. You can link to that page just as a reference if you need to. But many of you I know have now registered, so you should be okay. But in case you have not, that's a resource that you can look to. But one thing I just really want to highlight here is just the 3 resources that we did talk about in that session. That's your course planning worksheet. One great thing to do, you can download it as a PDF and save it, where you can modify it if you want to plug in courses or move things around, or print it out just to have so that you are aware of your progression within the program. And it's just a great tool that you will want to definitely keep handy as you're navigating through the program. Also, the School of Social Work course catalog. Please feel free to make sure that you are also referencing that when you need to, when you are planning to register for courses as well. And then I know we did go over just the ability to browse the catalog even within Wolverine Access as you're going through the process of backpacking courses and then registering for courses as well. So again, I know a lot of resources we went over before, but if you have any direct questions, feel free to reach out, and I can definitely assist with that as well. Next slide for me, Beth. Okay, so we did talk about last time too, just the course enrollment petition process. So petitions do a lot of great things. And I know sometimes when you see that a class is closed, oftentimes students get discouraged. Our courses are typically capped at 20 seats. And so what you will see is 15 seats that are typically available and open. We do have 5 seats that are sort of hidden. And if there isn't interest in those seats, we will go through the process of reviewing those petitions fairly quickly. And more often than not, the students are able to get the courses that they want. So if you see a course saying closed, make sure that you fill out that course petition form, because it is also a tracking tool for us in terms of managing course interests. So the more, students we have interested, those, when we look at it as a program and say, perhaps we need to consider offering another section of a particular course. So keep that in mind as you are registering for courses as well. Typically, the course petition process in terms of reviewing those requests will take a little bit of time. Most of the time, I would say you should expect to hear something back within a week. And if that's not the case, we will definitely let you know if we are unable to provide you with a seat in the course. But like I said, the majority of our students are able to get exactly what they need based on the requests that they put in. So keep that in mind. And I should also add to that, we are also in the process of having more elective courses that are being created. So there will be a plethora of options and opportunity for you to take courses well beyond what you see if something happens to be closed. Great question, Amanda. I can answer that. So our courses right now are offered Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights from 6 to 8 p.m. and then from 8 to 10 p.m. We are exploring other options once the full-time version of the program launches, where there might be some flexibility to have courses offered outside of those specific time frames. But as of right now, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. and then 8 to 10 p.m. Okay. And yes, thanks, Aaron. Those are Eastern Standard Time. That's correct. Next slide for me, Beth. Okay, so in terms of what to expect, these are the majority of our courses are 3 credits and 1 credits. So here is sort of a general breakdown of what you can expect. There is a synchronous session. That's the 2-hour block. Again, either 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 p.m. But before that, you will have asynchronous coursework. So that might look like just general assignments, readings, and other videos. Those opportunities for you to take that time to do the pre-work for the session that's coming up. So for instance, today is Thursday, right? Is today Thursday? Yes, today's Thursday. So leading up to Thursday, for instance, you will have the days prior to where you would actually prepare for that session. And so the live session is really meant to sort of highlight and take you through all of the information that you would have done individually to prepare for that session. That's a little bit different in our residential program, but for you, you will have more asynchronous work, as I said, just to prepare you for that live session. So if you haven't really prepared, the live session really won't be as beneficial or engaging as it should be. So we want to make sure that you are for sure completing all of your required asynchronous work before you go to that live session. And again, those Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, depending on your class, 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 p.m. All right, next slide for me, Beth. Okay, so in terms of technology and what you can expect, I know Barb and I talked about it. Your 590 course will probably be live soon in Canvas, but that is our course management system. So all of your courses will have a Canvas site where you can see all the assignments, discussion boards, all the information that you need to be successful for your course. That will be the primary hub for each course that you will take within the program. All of our sessions are held in this format over Zoom. And then there's also another tool, Submersion, which has a very different simulations that are usually very helpful in terms of helping you to put into practice many of the skill sets that you're learning in the classroom. What I would say to add to that, as noted here, it's important to just be in a quiet location for your live session. We want this to be very beneficial. And what I will say again, as lots of students say, they just did not anticipate sometimes what to expect coming into this online program. You do a lot of work, a lot of meaningful work, and you want to be well prepared and you want to be free from distractions so that you can fully engage and participate in the learning process, because it will ultimately help you in the long run. And as you start making connections, I think this will be very important, especially once you transition into your field education. You will start seeing some of those things in practice come to life. based on what's happening in the classroom. So make sure you are, attentive, you're alert, and you're in a space where you can fully engage in the learning process. Yes, good point, Barb. And with that said, I know there's a lot of questions sometimes about it, but what I will say is that this is an online program. So you've signed up to engage and learn in a virtual format. So do your best to make sure that you are turning your cameras on so that you can show that as a sign of engagement. And it's more helpful. And I can say personally, it's not fun usually just talking to a bunch of names or just black boxes. We want it to be engaging. And it's also a way for you to not just learn, but to engage and connect with your other colleagues within your classes as well. So as much as you can, always turn your cameras on. If there are, other special circumstances, that's understandable, but that's something that as students, you should be a little bit proactive on in terms of communicating with your faculty ahead of time before that class session. Okay. All right. Next slide for me, Beth. So what to expect? These, again, the majority of your classes are 3 credits, so there is a lot of work. So think about it like this: for each credit, you're expected to complete about 45 hours of work. So typically within a week, that works out to about 3 hours a week per credit. So keep that in mind as you are, planning and managing and navigating your time, because you want to make sure that you are, adequately prepared to engage in your readings, and to actually complete the work that is assigned to you. We've addressed I would say a lot of the issues that have come up in terms of the reading load. And so everything that is set within the courses has been reviewed by faculty, course creators, and other students. And so what you have is really the essentials in terms of what you'll do in terms of your reading load. So make sure that you are just setting aside appropriate time to complete those tasks and other assignments as well. A lot of time commitments. This is not something that you will have to worry about right away. But with respect to your field education, typically you will be completing on average 16 hours per week, along with your class credits as well. So you want to make sure that you factor that in, especially if you are still planning to work full-time or even go into a part-time working situation. Make sure that you are factoring all of those into the process as well. It will be very helpful and beneficial to you because I would say, as students say, it gets very real once you get into the thick of it and you start navigating through your field education as well. Next slide for me, Beth. All right, other things to know. So you all have received an invitation regarding the Social Work 590 course and the orientation weekend. That is a virtual mandatory sessions beginning on Friday, June 6th at 12 noon through Sunday, January 8th. Did I say June? January. January 6th through the 8th. So plan to be available for the entire weekend. It's a very informational session, I would say, having participated the last time around. And I think this is one of the best opportunities for you to get to know one another as a cohort, where you begin to make some of those initial connections. So make sure that you are planning to be there for that. Additionally, if you haven't already done so, you are receiving notifications in your University of Michigan email account. So please make sure that you are checking that account or work to get that information set up so that you can receive all of your course information that will go to your UMich account primarily moving forward as you have now begun the process of matriculating into the program. I should note also that there is some pre-work that will be needed to be completed prior to the start of the orientation for the Social Work 590 class. And then there will also be some additional assignments that will be completed later on. I did have some students who reach out and ask about the textbook. So the textbook you will use within this class for orientation, then you will also use it in your 699 capstone course. So if you're thinking about buying a digital copy, make sure that you select the perpetual option so that you can refer to it later. Or if you prefer, you can also purchase a hard copy of the book as well. Barb is highlighting some things in the chat that I will share as well. This is a very busy weekend, a lot of reading. So make sure that you are available. Childcare, making sure your snacks are ready, you've walked your dog, or any other obligations that would, pull you away, because it does get very busy. As you will have some live sessions, but you will also have some time where you will have some asynchronous work and then meet back up later within the orientation weekend. So this is not like it won't be that bad. It's an intense weekend. So I want you to be well prepared for what you are expecting and know what you're coming into. One of the other things that I will share, we use Slack. It is a communication platform, and it is one of the primary ways that you can communicate with me, Barb, and it is the way that we share a lot of information. So you will have a separate Slack channel for your team, Team 6, and then you will also be integrated into the larger all-team Slack channel. And so it is just one way that you can just share resources. I love seeing, we have a lot of students who sometimes ask, when is this due, or how was this assignment? Did you get any feedback on this? And to be able to have that sort of network of communication, it's very beneficial. And the way I've been trying to frame this more so now, think of, it's very different in our residential program because students can see each other and you can have that touch point and feel. Think of your Slack channel as sort of like hall time, you're passing in the hallway, where you can just have those offline conversations outside the classroom, just to ask questions, just to check in with each other. And if you don't feel, comfortable, sharing something in the larger Team 6 channel, feel free to communicate, and you can message me directly in Slack, or you can message Barb directly in Slack. I know some students get a little bit anxious about posting those questions in the larger group, but what I will say is that if you're thinking about it and you're having a question about it, I guarantee you someone else is as well. And the Slack channel is just a great community overall. So never feel as if you have to be worried or ashamed about what you're posting or what you're thinking, because like I said, someone else is 9 times out of 10 thinking it or have the same question as well. So yeah, great question, Kira. So essentially, all the teams are sort of together within their team. We are trying to just have a little bit more integration where folks across teams are wanting to get to know one another. So at best, what I would say is that, especially once you get into the all team channel, it will be a great opportunity, if you choose to connect with other students who may have taken courses that you are interested in, or just to ask them about their experience, about being in the program, or just other questions that you might have coming up. So I would say it's a great tool and resource for that, but primarily the majority of your interaction will be with your fellow colleagues within Team 6. Great question, Jennifer, in terms of textbooks. So as of right now, no, there are no additional textbooks that you'll need to purchase right now. The majority of the courses that you all will be coming into typically have articles that are assigned and within Canvas, so you should be all set there. But generally, all of our courses do open in time where you can access your textbooks if a textbook is required for your course. So is that my last slide, Beth? I think that's everything. Great. I'll turn it over to Aaron, who will walk you through the field placement information.
All right. Thanks, Antoine. Very nice to meet everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening. So my name is Aaron Gibson. I joined the field office here at University of Michigan School of Social Work this past summer. And my main role is to help place you at your field placement. So first, I'll just start with the question. Raise your hand or just give me a reaction with Zoom. If you've ever done an internship before, if you had to do an internship for credit for school. Great, at least half so far. I'd love for folks to type where you interned in the chat. It's always fun to see where people are coming from and where they might be going. I will say that, I love helping students find placements. I've done internships, around the world, in the United States. I've done a year-long AmeriCorps position, volunteered at, dozens of organizations. I love experiential learning, and it's really what kind of brings me joy in my career, and very excited to be working with you all. So let's go ahead to the next slide and we'll walk through how we do field here at the school. Feel free to go ahead and put questions in the chat. I'll either get to them as we're going or we'll collect at the end. So this first slide is sort of the theory behind field. From a program perspective, what are we looking for? There's kind of three main ways we break it down. One is the classroom theories and concepts, and you're going to take them to the real world setting, right? We're hoping you're not just reading this in a book and it doesn't actually work in the field. Number two is navigating ethical concerns according to the NASW Code of Ethics. That's the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. And third is the core competencies defined by the Council for Social Work Education. Those two agencies you'll definitely want to become familiar with as you're becoming a social worker, as they're kind of the two main bodies that help dictate our field and a lot of what we do. So in a nutshell, these are kind of the three main ideas of how we would define a successful field experience from a learning perspective. And you can see these arrows, they're pointing down to what's called an educational agreement. You won't need to know what that is for a long time, but essentially it's the document that writes everything you're doing during your placement, right? And it's going to relate to these three ideas. Throughout the semester, you're going to be working with your field instructor to document what you're learning and to show that you're learning the core competencies of being a social worker. We do treat field like a class. You can kind of see that as your final assignment of documenting what you're doing, relating it to the 9 social work competencies, and therefore you can confidently walk away saying, I've learned these core skills and I'm ready for the field, ready to jump in. We can go to the next slide. So we like to point out that field builds a foundation of knowledge, skills, and abilities, and we have some of those listed here. A lot of students go in thinking that once they leave field, they're going to know everything they'll ever need to know about social work. That's definitely not the case. We like to say we're building a foundation of knowledge, skills, and abilities, which you'll later improve on during your career. So don't feel pressured to be a master at every single one of these skills. I went through the program in 2014, and I can absolutely say that I get sharper and better at these skills every day, these abilities and these knowledge bases. So just you're going in as a student, and that's totally understandable. You're supposed to be new to the field. And we encourage that for the agencies too. The agencies understand that. Okay, go on to the next slide. Okay, Lisa, we will get to your question about being able to count work as field hours. Great question, and it's one of my next slides. And Barb may be able to help as well. So where will my field placement be? So first off, we start about 8 months before your field term starts, okay? So you really don't need to think about field until then. And the first trigger will be me reaching out directly to you so that we can meet and start the conversation about where you could be placed. If you're in Southeast Michigan or even, the greater Michigan area, we have lots of agencies already set up so that we can pretty much refer you to agencies near your city. Okay, that's a pretty simple process. We've been doing that for decades now. And essentially, I will give you a list of agencies for you to consider that we already have agreements with, and then we'll kind of send you out on interviews to see what's a good fit. If you're outside Michigan, across the United States, obviously placements may be less available. So that means we would start a new placement for you. That's totally fine. We've been doing it now, for over a year and a half. We've learned a lot of tricks. But essentially, I'm going to get to know you, get to know what kind of placement you'd like to have, and we're going to look for placements in your area. It's always helpful for students to do some research and look into local agencies near you to see what you might want to do. Also, I always encourage students to reach out to your network. You know, if you have family members, friends, past colleagues who might work in an agency that you want to intern with, that makes my job even easier of reaching out and seeing if they want to be placed. Thirdly, remote options are rare. Most placements do take place in person. It's a common question that comes up. Can you, and remote placements are definitely allowable. They're just a little bit more rare. And Eli, did you ever hand up, or is that from the previous question? I'm happy to pause for a question.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, old hand. I'll lower it. Sorry.
No problem.
You know, you'd think by now we'd be like experts in Zoom. But
No,
sadly, no.
we'll never be. Foundation of skills, right? Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So these are just some common field settings, right? A lot of students ask, can I do my field placement at this spot? Some placements are much easier to understand if they'll work more than others. So you can see here some common places we'll place students. But at the end of the day, you know, again, I would pay attention to the CSWE social work competencies. As long as you have the ability to practice those competencies in the placement, we're going to say yes, right? So we're definitely flexible with students too, especially across the country. We know that we may be placing students in uncommon places, but you know, as long as those competencies are being learned, we want to work with you to make it happen. Okay, next slide, please. Let me go through some common field questions. Are internships paid? So the university allows agencies to pay interns, but it is uncommon. If an agency would like to pay an intern, and we definitely recommend that, that's totally fine. But it is uncommon, most are unpaid. Number two, can I complete my field placement at my place of employment? The short answer is yes, as long as your employer approves of the placement and your job allows you to practice the social work competencies required for your pathway. I believe these slides will be shared out. There's a link here to the employment-based placement application, which you can review ahead of time. Essentially, in it, you describe what your agency is, your job description, and how it relates to the social work competencies. You can count, if it gets approved, you can count work hours as field hours. So if you work 40 hours a week, you don't have to work any additional hours. You would just simply earmark 16 hours of those hours a week, or however many you need to complete, as your field hours. And again, when we do your check-in about 8 months ahead, that can be one of the first questions we go through if that's something you're thinking of. Can I change field placements? Typically, we only change placements in kind of emergency type situations. So, for example, big family life change, all of a sudden you can't go in person to an agency, or the agency just isn't really providing, isn't really giving you the educational setting you need. Now, in that situation, we would definitely work with you and the agency first to work out whatever kinks we can. And it is rare, but we are able to move students in a kind of more emergency situations. 3, do I have to find my own placement? No, you do not have to find your own placement, but I definitely encourage students, you know, do some research in your area when we're getting closer to the search, because what I can do is, you know your community better than I do, right? So I can go on different websites and do some Googling of agencies nearby you that might be of interest, but I love it when a student comes to me of like, hey, I really want to work with kids. Here's 5 agencies or a couple schools in the area that are nearby. My kids used to go to school there, so I kind of know some people. That's great for me, right? Because then it makes it easier to reach out, and I make sure I'm going to get you the best placement possible. Can I complete a remote placement? So again, Students can work in person, hybrid, or remote schedule as long as the agency agrees to it. They are rare, but the fully remote are rare and can't be guaranteed. However, the sooner I know that, the better. You know, if for whatever reason, let's say you're in a really rural part of the country and there's literally no agency within 20 miles, right? We can look at remote options for you. Okay, I'll pause here to see if there's any questions on this slide or any other common questions that might come up. Will we be doing a different field placement each semester from Lisa? No, you'll be doing the same one. Most placements are going to be between 12 and 16 months straight. And you'll be doing an average of 16 hours a week for those 3 or 4 terms. Good question. Yes, let me go ahead and pull up the employment-based placement application link, put it in the chat. And again, the biggest thing to pay attention to here is, I think it might be question 5, where you're tying your job description to the social work competencies. We ask students to actually draft up a narrative of the 9 social work competencies and kind of bullet point your job description underneath. And if you're at an agency that could allow it, but you're not currently kind of doing that in the work, it could be a great opportunity to talk with your boss to say, I'm doing this program, I need to fill these competencies. Can we kind of change my job description around a bit to fit them? So essentially, once that application is complete, it's reviewed by our office. And if approved, we work with your agency so that they can become an official field placement. Okay, I think we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so now what? I think my pieces of advice would be, again, reflect on your goals and why you're considering social work. We like to say field should be exciting and challenging. You know, it is definitely not going to be perfect. You are going to run into problems that you may not know how to solve, or maybe you didn't expect to solve. And to some extent, that's good, right? Because as soon as you graduate and step into a new role, you know, you're going to be expected to take on challenges. So, but we like to say, you know, you should have reasonable challenges. You should have you should have a support network to get through those. Third, I would say, is be open to new experiences and get ready to venture out of your comfort zone. For some of you, this may be kind of your first step into the social work field. And we like to say field is the #1 way that students remember and practice social work. You know, so it's going to be not just you're new to an organization, but you're new to a whole field, right? And there's a lot to work through and learn. And it may push you out of your comfort zone, and that is totally normal. Thankfully, you have a great field office to support you. There's about 9 or 10 staff behind me in our field office. And, you know, we're here for anything you might need, and you'll meet us all very soon. Megan asked, would we be able to work in different roles within the same field placement? For example, they work in a large mental health organization. Would they be able to work part of their placement in case management and part in campus clinics? Yes, that is a great point. You could definitely work in multiple departments within the organization. And as long as it's approved by your supervisor, you know, of counting those hours, no problem with us. Okay. In terms of the schedule, so again, students begin field 12 to 16 months into the program. So I probably won't see a lot of you for, you know, at least another 6 months. And the field application cycle is different from on-campus students, but, you know, all of our event calendars, and we'll definitely be sending out notices as we get closer to the date. And I will reach out individually to everyone here who's starting 8 months out. Right. And so I typically will schedule a one-on-one with us within a couple of weeks of me reaching out. So I get to know you and we develop a plan of action. Also, students will be invited to a field webinar specifically for online students during their first term. So again, once we actually get you placed and set up, there's also more orientation for you once you're placed in the first term. I think that's it for me, and happy to answer any other questions or even repeat or clarify anything.
Thank you, Erin. Next, we're going to have Cerise Carrington. She is our Financial Aid Assistant Director.
Good evening or good afternoon, maybe to some of you. I'd like to welcome you as students into the MSW program here at the University of Michigan. So as Beth mentioned, I serve as the Assistant Director for Financial Aid here in the School of Social Work. I have been in this particular position just for a few months, actually, but serving as a financial aid counselor in the office for about the last 4 to 5 years. So definitely happy to answer any questions that you all may have, whether it be now or 4 or 5 months into your program about financial aid. I certainly recognize that for some of you, this may be the first time that you are directly engaged with financial aid. You know, maybe parents or other family members handle that aspect for you going through undergrad. I also recognize that we probably have a number of you that maybe have been out of school for a number of years and are, tackling this for the first time, after a number of years. So definitely happy to answer any questions and help you all navigate through what I'm probably sure is a pretty daunting and maybe scary topic for some of you. But again, I just want to make sure that by the end of this webinar, you have at least a working knowledge of how the financial aid process works. You can go to the next slide, Beth. All right, so I'd like to start off just by talking a little bit about tuition costs for you all as online part-time students. I'd like to first just stress that as part-time students, you are charged per credit hour by the university. And kind of the tables that I'll list out in this slide, as well as the next for non-resident students, will kind of provide for you an estimate cost based upon the amount of credit hours that you're going to be registered for each of the 7 semesters. Keep in mind also that the University of Michigan is a little bit different in the sense that there isn't just one rate per credit hour. What happens is students are charged one rate for the first credit hour, and then there is a different rate for each additional credit hour after that first credit. If you have if you have questions or would like to know specifically what those per credit hour rates are for this current academic year, you're welcome to visit the university's registrar's website. They have those rates posted there. But these tables that I am providing on the screen here are coming from our website. The other thing I should mention is that within our university, tuition usually increases annually. So every fall semester, tuition usually increases by just a little bit. And so, for instance, for fall 2023, that starts a new academic year for us. And so, unfortunately, at this time, we don't have the exact figures for what tuition rates will be. The university normally does not set those until June or July, before that fall semester begins. But what we've been able to do is provide estimates based upon historical increases over the last few years as it relates to just how much tuition has increased. So we're trying to give you a snapshot of just overall what you're looking at as far as costs through the program. Based on the screen here, I do want to take a moment and also talk about the tuition award that most of you, if not all of you, probably received as a part of your School of Social Work financial aid package. The tuition award is to help offset the cost of your tuition. As you all can see, for instance, a Michigan resident on the screen here, the total cost that you'll be charged by the university is an estimated roughly $80,000. You'll see $79,165, but I'll just, kind of round, roughly $80,000. And that is because, again, as a part-time student, you're charged per credit hour. On the flip side, I would like to also just share with you a full-time on-campus student going through pretty much this exact same program as a Michigan resident only would be charged roughly about $45,000 to $48,000 roughly. So ultimately, we recognize that discrepancy in how tuition is assessed for part-time students. And so we offer this tuition award in your final 3 semesters of the program to help offset the cost so that by the time that you look at, all of your numbers, the cost that you're responsible to pay is very similar to that of a full-time on-campus student. So again, you'll see under the total student cost, the roughly $47,000 listed. And keep in mind that many of you may have also received other grants and scholarships over the course of your first 4 semesters in the program, which will help to reduce that $47,000 even further as you go through the program. You'll also see in the final semester, the tuition offset may very well be a little bit more than what your actual tuition and fees will be, which means that money will just be refunded to you for you to utilize towards maybe other educational or living expenses that you potentially have. Next screen, Beth. Now, before I'll answer questions in just a moment, I just want to get to and show again the non-Michigan resident program cost. So again, you'll see the total figure of the roughly $126,000, but then by the time the tuition offset kicks in, the cost is reduced to, like I said, roughly what a full-time on-campus student would be paying. Erin, okay, you might have the questions taken care of. So I'll try to stick to my slides just to kind of keep with time so everyone has it. But again, I'll certainly be able to come back and go through the questions towards the end. So next slide, Beth. From a financial aid perspective, I just would like to also point out that there are 2 offices working in conjunction with one another as it pertains to your financial aid. The School of Social Work will be responsible for awarding grants and scholarships. The larger university's Office of Financial Aid is ultimately responsible for federal funding. So those awards that come from completion of the FAFSA, so the free application for federal student aid that many of you probably have already completed. And so at the federal level, students are eligible for direct loans, as well as potentially work study. And so these loans can also be utilized to help cover not only cost of tuition, but potentially any living expenses that you may have going through the program. So at the federal level, many of you might have been awarded the direct unsubsidized loan. This will be in the amount of $10,250 per semester for most students. Students enrolled in the spring summer semester are also eligible for this unsubsidized loan. Many of you probably have seen in your Wolverine Access account that you only have a winter financial aid award posted. And that's solely because the spring summer semester is kind of a unique semester for the University of Michigan in that it's considered its own unique individual semester. So you're packaged at a later time for the spring summer semester. But generally speaking, you can anticipate the exact same federal package in the spring summer as you did, for instance, in the fall and the winter semester. The unsubsidized loan is awarded to you for the spring summer semester once you officially register for those spring summer classes. So again, that will come later in the winter semester. I think maybe sometime in March, if I'm not mistaken, is when you might register for the spring summer semester. But again, I'm sure our online program staff can correct me if I was incorrect about that. I don't know that we have the exact date as of right now. Students are also eligible to apply for a Direct Graduate Plus loan. With the Direct Graduate Plus loan, there is a separate application that is required simply because it's based upon a credit check. And so the first step, obviously, is completing the FAFSA. But then again, if you're interested in the Grad Plus loan, there's a separate application as the max amount that a student can borrow as far as a Graduate Plus loan is equivalent to the total cost of attendance, which will be determined by the university over the summer, minus any other financial aid already received. So again, I know that this may sound a little weird in terms of, well, how do I calculate that? And please note that, again, you are welcome to contact our office and have a direct conversation about your individual financial aid package if you want to know more specifics about the numbers in terms of what you'll be eligible for. But the amount of the Grad Plus loan definitely may vary for each student based upon financial aid that you've already been awarded. Students in the spring summer semester are also eligible for a Graduate Plus loan. Again, a new application will be required, and that normally is available in April of every year. So just an overall snapshot regarding federal funding. First step would be to complete the FAFSA. So if you have not done so, please make sure that you do so. The FAFSA ultimately will cover one academic year. So for the purposes of what we're talking about here and kind of your enrollment in the MSW program, the FAFSA that you probably completed now will cover the winter 2023 semester along with the spring summer 2023 semester. Being enrolled for future semesters, so for instance, fall of 2023, winter of 2024, you need to make sure that you're renewing your FAFSA every academic year. And ultimately, the FAFSA for fall 2023 is actually available now. So I do encourage you to go ahead and just complete that now, just to get it out of the way so that you don't run into any issues come the fall semester with any of your aid being processed on time. Next slide, Beth. Talking a little bit about work study, as I mentioned, work study allows students to work part-time usually while they're engaged in the educational program. Work study is a federal award, so it has to be a part of your federal financial aid package that will come from the university's Office of Financial Aid. Normally, there is a question in the FAFSA that asks, do you wish to be considered or are you interested in work study? And usually if you identify yes, work study will be a part of your package. If it was not a part of your package and you're interested in work study, I would highly encourage you to reach out to the university's Office of Financial Aid to see if that's something that can be added to your award package. But again, it allows for students to essentially find a job working on campus or through some type of agency that has an affiliation with the University of Michigan that qualifies for work study. And then you actually have to work that job throughout the semester to receive a paycheck. And the paycheck that you receive can be used essentially towards anything, any educational expenses that you may have. So whether it's transportation costs, again, traditional living expenses, rent, mortgage, groceries, cell phone bill. I know that it was mentioned that there are no books that you need to purchase for the program, but even just other educational expenses that you may find that you have as you matriculate through the program. The typical work study award is $1,500 per semester. And so what that means is, let's just say, for instance, you find a job on campus that pays $15 an hour. Because you're capped at that $1,500, that means that you have 100 hours that you can work for that particular semester in order to receive that max amount of $1,500. Between you and your employer, you all will work to identify what are the appropriate hours for the job that you'll be doing will be. Many work study sites on campus are a bit flexible just because they know that first and foremost, you are in fact a student. Many students will work between 8 to 10 hours per week, some more, some maybe less. Work study also may be limited in the spring summer semester. So I encourage students not to necessarily bank on a work study position or even a decent amount of hours during the spring summer because those funds may be limited. You're able to identify and apply for work study positions via studentemployment.umich.edu. And as I recognize, many of you may not be here in the state of Michigan or local to the area. There may in fact be some remote options available to you, but you would just simply have to search the site to identify what is actually applicable to you. The one other note that I will provide regarding work study is that it's kind of a use it or lose it type thing, which means that you might have a work study award as a part of your financial aid package, but you may decide that you don't want to work or you just can't work utilizing this work study award while in the program. And this is not a loan, so it's not money that you have to pay back if you decide not to have a work study job. The mere fact is that you will just never see that $1,500. You will never see that money, be processed to your student account. You will never see it be deposited to your bank account, essentially in the form of a paycheck. You just won't see that money at all. So again, you're welcome to leave it as a part of your package because you may decide, later into the semester that you wish to find a work study job, or many of you know that you're not going to use it. And so it's okay to right off the bat decline the work study award as a part of your package as well. Next slide. A few next steps that I provide. So one of the key ones will be to verify your residency status, especially if a part of your admissions materials and admissions letter, it was noted to you that your residency status could not be determined. Sometimes you yourself, for instance, may identify yourself as a Michigan resident, but maybe there was something on your application that flagged you as a non-resident. And so it's important to make sure that you're completing the appropriate application to apply for in-state residency so that there's no concerns or issues when it comes time to billing you for tuition. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be billed as a non-resident while all along you're under the assumption that you're being considered a Michigan resident. So the tuition costs will be extremely different between those two. I generally recommend submitting that application as soon as you are aware that this is an issue. Depending upon the time of year, it can be a 10 to 12 week processing time for the university's residency office to get that taken care of. For those of you that are maybe having this issue currently, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our office to have a conversation about some things that you can do in the meantime to help your tuition and billing situation as you're going through the residency process. There are a few things that we can help you with in terms of communicating with various offices across campus and trying to get this rectified. We're asking that you accept and or decline any loans and or work study within Wolverine Access. If you're unable at this point to accept or decline any loans or work study in Wolverine Access, we just simply ask that you email the university's Office of Financial Aid directly with your request. I think after so long, the system will lock you out of the ability to accept or decline any of your loans through that system. I do also encourage students to be mindful of the loan amounts that you actually accept. And so that essentially just means assess your true need. Just because you're going to be offered $10,250 in a direct unsubsidized loan doesn't mean that you actually need that entire amount. Because again, keep in mind that this is a loan. This is money that you have to pay back. These are loans that are accruing interest from the moment the funds are actually dispersed to you. So I don't recommend taking out more than you actually need. And again, that's a conversation that our office is welcome to have with you if you maybe think that you need some help kind of budgeting for the semester to know how much of the loan you should or should not be taking. We can have that conversation with you as well. You should accept decline School of Social Work grants and scholarships by completing the student acceptance decline of award form and returning it to the School of Social Work Financial Aid Office. This accept decline award notice was submitted, or it was an attachment that came from the School of Social Work along with your School of Social Work funds. So if you have not submitted that form back to us, please make sure you do so as soon as possible in order for your grants and scholarships to be posted to your account at the top of the semester. You'll need to complete any applicable master promissory notes or entrance counseling for any of your direct loans. And so specifically, the entrance counseling will apply if you have the direct unsubsidized loan. The master promissory note will apply if you have requested to borrow any grad plus loans. Both of these documents are just essentially helping you to identify a little bit more about what your rights and responsibilities are for being a student loan borrower. And it will explain ultimately some of the terms of the loans. And so thinking about interest rates and, kind of when do I have to pay back my loans? And a lot of those questions will be answered through that process. But again, in order for any of your federal funding, so any of the loans, in order for those to be processed to your student account, you'll want to make sure that you complete both of these documents. We do encourage students to set up direct deposit via Wolverine Access for easy access to any applicable refunds or work study funding. If you decide not to set up direct deposit, that's entirely okay. What will happen is a check will be mailed to the residence that you have on file. And so that's why we mentioned direct deposit is just an easier, smoother process. Not only do you receive your funds quicker via direct deposit, but you don't really have to do anything after that. Obviously, with a check being mailed to your home, you actually have to go and deposit and cash that check essentially. So I know that there are ways nowadays we can do those types of things from our phone, but it's just an added step as you've got to wait for the check to come through the mail. And, no one wants to wait for money, especially if you're needing it to cover applicable costs that you may have or expenditures as you go through the program. One of the key things that we're finding with the inception of the online program that I also just want to point out, for any of you that will be receiving refunds regarding your financial aid, and keep in mind, a refund will apply if your financial aid award is greater than your tuition and fee charges. And so with refunds, refund amounts may actually change after the third week count. Without getting into the weeds of, kind of boring you with all of the details and explanation, the university adjusts the costs essentially, or the amount of tuition that you're charged for part-time students after the third week of classes beginning. And so sometimes that means that your actual bill may change by just a little bit. And again, it's not going to be anything that you have to be responsible for. Again, for most of our students, your financial aid will take care of all of your costs going through the program. But just from a billing perspective, sometimes things get a little bit weird with our part-time students in the way that it's handled by the university's Office of Financial Aid. And so sometimes what has happened in the past is that a student received a refund, but then their student account was adjusted and they may have owed more money than they actually initially were told. And so usually what it means is that that refund that you receive would just need to be paid back to the university, or some amount of it would need to be paid back to the university to cover that balance. But what we have found far too often is that students have taken that refund money and spent it immediately. And so now they no longer have that money to cover their balance. Usually this is only an issue with students that have larger scholarship and grant awards. But again, I just want everyone to be mindful. I'm advising not to spend any refund money until you have verified your costs. Now, again, you're welcome to wait until after that third week count to make sure that nothing adjusts itself on your student account. You're also welcome to reach out to our office and we can kind of, give you a heads up as to what is what. But I just don't want you all to find yourself in that situation with, having a balance created on your account that you have no idea of how you're going to cover it. Next slide, Beth. In terms of understanding your student account, many of you actually probably have a bill for the winter semester in your Wolverine Access account now that you have registered for classes. As your student bill will include any tuition and fees. For any of you that may be staying in university housing, on-campus housing charges will apply on your student account. There may be a separate section titled pending aid within your student account or that actual bill, which will reflect any grants or scholarships or unsubsidized loans that have not yet been actually processed to your account. Graduate Plus loans will not show as pending aid, but will appear on your account once processed by the university. It's important to note this because I've had some questions from students over the last few weeks. I've got a bill in my Wolverine Access account. How do I pay it? You know, what's going on? And I just want you all to be aware that there's no rush to do anything as of right now. As I mentioned, grants and scholarships will be applied to that tuition bill. And then any loans that you have will be applied to that tuition bill. Tuition for the winter semester is actually not due until January 31st of 2023. So trust me when I say that for the majority of you, as long as you've taken care of those promissory notes, the entrance counseling, accepting and declining loans, everything will process to your account well before that January 31st deadline. Scholarships and grants, as I mentioned, will usually be applied first. Any loans that you have, specifically the direct loans for the unsubsidized and the Grad Plus, they will be applied to your account no more than 10 days before the beginning of the semester. So that's essentially why none of you probably have the loans directly applied to that bill as of right now. We strongly encourage you every semester to verify that all of your awards have posted to your account and that your awards are actually enough to cover all of your identified costs within your bill. Sometimes as we move into future academic years, sometimes students may forget that they needed to renew the FAFSA. So essentially it's a matter of, well, my direct loan doesn't show on my account. Well, that may be because you didn't renew the FAFSA in enough time for those loans to be processed to your account. Usually, if you're able to catch that fairly quickly, we're able to help you rectify it and get that taken care of so that your balance can be covered. Any payments for tuition and fees or even on-campus housing can be made directly via e-payment through Wolverine Access or by submitting a check to the university. I should let you know that the university does not accept credit card payments. So that's one thing to be mindful of if you are paying any portion of your tuition and fees out of pocket. Next slide. Some additional scholarship and funding opportunities that may be available to you all. Every year, the School of Social Work has a number of development fund awards available. These are all scholarships essentially that require a separate application. We usually make these applications available sometime in August, maybe early September of each year. So be on the lookout via your email in August for a listing of these scholarships. Many of them are one-time awards that you are able to apply for if you are eligible. And so again, keep in mind that these require separate applications. And so you're going to be required to complete those applications by the required deadline. But again, you all will be here in August of 2023, even going into August of 2024. So you may have essentially two opportunities to apply for some of these development fund scholarships that we have. There's also a listing on our website for external scholarships. So these are all of the scholarships that are due, or sorry, that have nothing to do with the University of Michigan or the School of Social Work. They're all external organizations. So you're welcome to take a look at those and apply for any that are applicable. You will want to contact those external organizations if you have questions about those. The university does also offer graduate student instructor graduate student research assistant, and graduate student staff assistant positions across campus. Unfortunately, we don't offer any of these positions in the School of Social Work, with the exception of maybe our DEI office. Their situation is a little bit different in the sense that their funding for these positions comes from the larger DEI office. It's not internal to the School of Social Work. So they may have opportunities every year for a GSSA position in our DEI office. But otherwise, our students will need to find these available positions in other departments across campus. In order to apply for most of these positions, you must be registered for a minimum of 6 credits in the given semester that you're applying. 5 credits with advisor approval is allowed. As a GSI, you're assisting in the planning and teaching of undergraduate courses. As a GSRA, you're assisting faculty on research projects. I have the note that these GSRA positions are primarily reserved for PhD students, but every now and again, we do have master's level students, whether it be our MSW students or other master's level students across campus that are able to secure one of these positions. So I don't discourage you from applying, but just be mindful of the posting and what the requirements are. As a GSSA, you're assisting with administrative tasks within a particular department. So again, with our DEI office, for instance, you're helping with a lot of the programming that they do within their office in terms of connecting with students, connecting with other departments across campus and things of that nature. The benefits of having one of these positions is that normally you receive a tuition waiver. And for most of the positions that we've seen, it's a full tuition waiver, which means that your tuition will be completely covered along with health benefits and a monthly stipend. And these benefits are applicable only in the semesters that you hold these positions. So it won't be necessarily for the entirety of your time in the program unless you're able to secure one of these positions for every single semester of your time in the program. These positions can be located on the university's careers website, which I've listed on the screen here. Again, being mindful that recognizing many of you are not local to the area, so you just want to be mindful on the posting if remote opportunities are available with some of these positions. I can imagine that, for instance, with the GSI positions, many of those positions will require that you have availability to be on campus to help with teaching and the planning of those courses. But again, there might be some remote opportunities available. So I do encourage you all to explore, as these positions are a great way to help cover costs, or at least for a portion of your time in the program. Next slide. Some additional resources, finally, to provide. The university does offer a child care subsidy for students with dependent children in childcare. Unfortunately, this subsidy is limited to those individuals that are currently residing in the state of Michigan. The university does offer student health insurance. The deadline to enroll for the winter and spring summer semester will be January the 31st. So definitely look into that, as essentially you're able to utilize any of your financial aid to cover the student health insurance. So again, if you're going to be receiving a refund from your financial aid, some of that money can potentially go towards purchasing the student health insurance. The university does also offer tuition insurance, which will be available for students that may be unable to complete a term due to illness or injury, whether it be physical or mental health. So this is something to look into. Maybe if you have already identified that, you have an illness or, could potentially receive an injury if you're going to be, doing some type of strenuous activity in the months to come, you may wish to take a look at the tuition insurance plan so that you're not on the hook for the tuition costs for the semester in the event that you have to withdraw from the program essentially mid-semester. The university does also offer a payment plan option. The payment plan should only be used if you are planning to pay any portion of your tuition for the semester out of pocket. The payment plan does not apply if you're going to be utilizing grants and scholarships and loans to cover the cost of your tuition. But the payment plan essentially just allows you to spread out the balance that you have for a particular semester across the semester. So you're essentially paying in installments instead of one lump sum. Keep in mind that with the payment plan, it is not an option for the spring, summer semester. It's only applicable for the fall and winter semester. And I should also note that the payment plan doesn't run along the course of a traditional semester. So for instance, the winter semester is January through April. The payment plan doesn't run along that same cycle. The payment plan for the winter semester actually started in November and will go through March. So for instance, if you decide to sign up for the payment plan today, you more than likely will have payments due going back to November as well as the current month of December. And then in January, you'll be billed, and then again in February and March. And the deadline to enroll for the winter semester, if you're interested in the payment plan, will be January the 31st. And I think that's my last slide. Beth, I wanted to answer, there was a question from Jennifer. To clarify, my tuition bill says it is due January 4th. Is that incorrect? It's not technically incorrect, but yes, it is. Essentially, classes start January 4th. So what happens is the university would like for your bill to be paid by the time that classes start. But essentially, coming from Student Financial Services, the office or the entity that actually handles student accounts and billing, tuition for the winter semester is not officially due until January the 31st. So let's just say, for instance, you get to your first day of class and your balance is still not paid. I get this question a lot from students. Will it affect my ability to attend my class? And the answer is no. You're still able to attend your classes if you have a balance on your account. Having a balance on your account essentially will prevent you from registering for future semesters. It will ultimately also prevent you from receiving your degree at the end of the program if you have a balance remaining. So again, that's why I mentioned it's very important at the beginning of the semester that you're checking your account, making sure all of the aid that you understood that you were going to have has posted to your account, so we can try to help you maybe get it taken care of and figure out what has not posted to your account in enough time so that you don't have a bill come January the 31st. What will also happen for every 30 days past January 31st, and this is for every semester, that the balance remains unpaid, students will accrue a $30 late fee. So for every 30 days the balance is not paid, you'll incur a $30 late fee for every month. So that's all I have. And like I said, I understand that some of this, it may have been a lot for some of you here, but again, I am certainly happy to answer any questions directly. You're more than welcome to email me directly, contact our office, and I'm happy to set up a direct meeting with you to kind of discuss your individual financial aid situation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cerise, for that great information. So I'm just going to cover a few more resources that can be really useful for you as you coming in student, and then we will wrap up this evening session. So where we're representing today is myself and Erin, who's been moderating the chat, as well as Cerise. We are housed in the Office of Student Services and Enrollment Management. There's a lot of things that are handled under our area. So we work with financial aid, student organizations, student life, health and wellness, and services for students with disabilities. You'll see here is our contact information. Feel free to email us. We know there's a lot of information given today. We also want to talk about the service for students with disabilities and their accommodation system. You as an online student still have access to those services, so please reach out to them if that's something that you could use. We also have an awesome career and writing service center built right into the school, which is amazing. We have Betsy Williams, who works with our writing services and helps with papers. She just loves to be able to be assistance for students. So we will give more information about that throughout your time. We also have Michelle Woods, who helps with our career services, job preparation, resumes, licensing assistance, just a wealth of information there. So you'll see how to reach out to career and writing services is listed right there. We also on campus have CAPS, which is the Counseling and Psychological Services. And we are lucky to have an embedded counselor in the School of Social Work, Jamie Boucher. And as an online student, if you live within the state of Michigan, you are able to meet with her virtually or in person. If you are out of state, you can meet with CAPS once, and they're going to help connect you with therapists or resources in your region. But we do have a lot of other resources as well. So Together All is an online anonymous peer support tool. You Will is free for students, and you have immediate access to these services, and you will get up to 4 sessions from anywhere in the country. You would just sign up for that using your UMich email account. There's also Silver Cloud, which is an interactive mental health. It's an online self-guided interactive health resource that can be effective option for students that are seeking services. We also do have a CAPS counselor on duty, and you can reach them for an appointment same day or after hours. So you'd reach somebody in our CAPS office if you call during office hours, but after hours, there's going to be somebody who responds to you. So that is a great resource to have. There's also going to be a way to access all of this information and more. Lots of stuff has been talked about today, and so we want you to have access to this here at our online admitted student toolkit. This is an amazing resource for you. We're going to send these slides out so you'll be able to access these links here. But go and check that out. There's just so much information in there for you. And then I wanted to give just a couple of minutes so we can answer any questions that you may have. If you think of them outside of tonight, you can always reach out to us via email or via phone at the numbers listed here. But I want you to be aware that we also have a great chat option on our website homepage. So if you're at the School of Social Work on umich.edu, you'll see the chat option located on the lower right hand of your screen. If you choose that, you're actually going to reach out to one of our staff in the Office of the Student Services. So we'll be able to help you when you're in need. So I'm going to pause and just give anybody who wants to ask a question an opportunity. You can put it in the chat or go ahead and unmute and ask.
Should I be concerned if it says my financial aid review status is still under review and I applied back in May, and it also says that the university has received my FAFSA?
No, that isn't necessarily anything to be concerned about. I think sometimes the university's Office of Financial Aid kind of prioritizes, if you will, review of the FAFSA, especially as it pertains to, students that are not starting until a future semester. So I do anticipate that will be taken care of for you by the time the beginning of the semester starts. If you like, you are more than welcome to maybe shoot me an email, maybe the middle of next week. And I can maybe double check on a few things for you to see where things stand. But normally that isn't an issue if it's showing in your account that your FAFSA is still being processed by the university.
Oh, Erin has just added Ceresa's email to the chat as well, so that you can reach out. Again, if you come up with a question after tonight, feel free to reach out to us. We know there was a lot of information given. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions. So we will mail out these slides afterward for your resource. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you need anything. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the University of Michigan School of Social Work, and go Blue.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.